Hi everyone. It's been a long time since I filmed a talking video, so I thought it was time to film another one. So in this video I want to talk about books. A little backstory: I only started reading books this year, March, so it hasn't really been that long. As much as I would like to share about how I got into reading again and what book got me into reading again, I would like to save that story for another video. In this video, I want to rate my 5 most recent books, and maybe you can find something that you might want to read in the future from this list. I'm going to give these books a rating from 0 to 5 stars, and then a very brief summary, and then my thoughts on the book. And I will try my best not to give out any major spoiler. Also, keep in mind that I haven't read enough books to be able to compare one book with another well enough. I'm also not usually the type to rate things, so I hope this video can be taken lightly and isn't taken very seriously. I'm just trying to share and have fun. Let me just open my book list in my Goodreads account just so that I can remember what the book is about. I don't really remember the content of the books I've read. So I'm going to be looking here a lot because this is where my laptop is. Okay, my 5 most recent books. The least recent book from this list is The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. I'm sure you know this book because it's such a classic, and I'm sure millions of people have read this book before. I rate this book a 4 out of 5. This book is a real diary written by a real person named Anne Frank. She wrote this diary during World War II, and Anne Frank and her family had to go into hiding. What I like about this book is how I could take a peek at her life during that time and know her thoughts. This diary contains her most vulnerable thoughts. She was a teenager when she started writing this diary. She was 13, 14. It made me try to remember how my emotions were at the time. Of course, my life cannot be compared with hers, but I like how she explains her emotions in the diary. At a young age, she writes really well. If I compare her diary to my current journal, her diary is more well written. But also, because it is a diary written in hiding, there really isn't a story or a build-up, obviously, which of course I had already expected before I started reading it. It has all the same people and the same place all throughout the book, which of course again is expected and understandable, which is why I think I wouldn't say that I enjoyed this book, because I kind of read it as a source of knowledge. I liked it because I learned from it. I would definitely recommend this to people because I think it is such an important piece of work. Okay, the second book on the list is Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. This is also a classic. It's kind of referenced everywhere. I give this book a 5 out of 5, perfect score. I really can't find anything that I'm not satisfied with. It's about a man called Charlie Gordon. He has an unusually low IQ, and he is chosen for an experimental surgery that will increase his intelligence. What I like about this book is how it's written in first-person point of view. Similar to The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank, this is also a diary, more like a progress report. One thing I like about this progress report is that we can see Charlie's improvement from the way he writes it. So at the beginning of the book, because of his low IQ, he has difficulties with spelling and grammar. He doesn't know how to spell and make grammatically correct sentences. So you can actually see that the first few entries of the progress report are full of typos, and you can also see that his thoughts are incredibly simple, innocent, and pure like a kid. But gradually, as he becomes smarter, not only does his spelling get better, he actually uses better words, he uses words that are complicated, and we can also see that his thought process becomes more complicated, and his knowledge about the world and his surroundings is also better. I rated a 5 out of 5, a perfect score, so I don't really have anything that I don't like about the book. I know there's also a movie. Ghazali watched the movie while I was reading the book and he cried. I didn't cry reading the book, but I think a lot of people would. The third book on the list is Girls of a Certain Age by Maria Adelmann. I hope I pronounced that right. I read this book a 3 out of 5. Let me just look at GoodNotes for a little summary of this book, because it's kind of hard to explain what this book is about. This darkly playful and subversive debut story collection explores the many impossible choices that accompany 21st century femaleness. It raises questions about how to handle an abusive partner, pregnancy, toxic friendship, unemployment, visibility, anger, loneliness, a lot of different themes. It's an okay book, unfortunately. This book is not that amazing. It's not bad, it's just okay. This book is a collection of short stories. I don't know how I feel about reading a book of short stories, because this was my first. Not a good impression. So because of the summary, for some reason I was expecting stories that radiate strong women energy, like feminism. I was kind of excited to read this book. I was expecting to feel seen and empowered, maybe, as a woman, but I didn't get those vibes at all. The short stories are told in the point of view of women, and they tell us about what they go through in their lives, different stories every time, but really that's it. This is my first time reading short stories, and I don't know if short stories are supposed to be like this, but it was not satisfying. Isn't a story supposed to have a structure? You have your introduction, you have your build up to the conflict, and then you have the conflict itself, you have the climax, and then you have the solution to the conflict, and then you have the ending. And I was expecting all of that, but it doesn't have that structure. I feel like most of them ends at conflict, and sometimes I feel like I have only just read the introduction of a story. I feel like I want to read more, but there's nothing more. I feel like I was left hanging. Would I recommend it? I don't know. But then again, maybe I just didn't quite understand the book. Is that possible? Maybe. Unfortunate, because I was really looking forward to reading this one. We're getting closer to the end of the list. The fourth book on the list is Animal Farm by George Orwell. I give it a 5 out of 5. Another perfect score. Do I give out a 5-star too easily? Maybe. You might notice the name of the author. He also wrote 1984. So there is a farm. The farm has obviously a lot of animals and a farmer. The animals are overworked and mistreated by the farmer, so these animals take over the farm. It's supposed to symbolize our world's totalitarianism. I have no complaint about this book. It is really well written. It was easy to understand. I like the pace of the book. I think it's not too fast, not too slow. It's just perfect. And I like that it's situated in a farm, not our human society. So that makes it unique. I can feel that George Orwell tries to criticize the world, and I can actually feel the message. The ending especially, I really like the ending. My favorite part is the ending. Around 5 pages towards the end, I could perfectly picture the story like movie scenes, especially the last page. I was amazed. I was amazed. I really want to say what it is, but again, I don't want to give out spoilers. Would I recommend it? Totally. If you're trying to start reading, I think this book is a good start. Now we're at the end of the list. The final book on the list is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I rate this book a 3 out of 5. This book is about a man called Dorian Gray who is described to be very pure, innocent, attractive. He sells his soul for eternal youth and beauty. It sounds very interesting, right? But listen, I had high expectations before I read this book. It's been on my list since March. I saw a lot of people reading it and saying that it's a good book. So I had my expectations. My expectations were high, so I thought it was going to be good. But it was a bit disappointing. I don't know exactly what I was expecting, but definitely not this. I feel like this book is a bit wordy. They talk about things that don't really matter, doesn't really contribute to the storyline, but it's there and it's really long. One person can talk for 1 page long. Well, maybe because this is written... When was this written? It was first published on June 1st, 1890. So it's probably because it was written such a long time ago. The words that they use are really hard. They're not commonly used today. It was kind of hard to read. So the vocabulary level is high, but also it's very descriptive, too long. Not something I prefer in a book. I found myself zoning off a lot. I did not feel motivated to finish it, but I didn't want to not finish a book, so I just had to finish it. I feel like the first half of the book was a bunch of nothing. I don't know. Nothing that really contributes to the book. Or did I not understand the book completely? Although I do admit towards the end there were some shocking things that I did not expect. I was not expecting Dorian Gray to be that kind of person. I think I would want to read it again in the future, but I expected better than this. Okay. Woo! Those were my 5 most recent reads. I don't think I did a very good job, but this is my first time. I will do better in my next video. I will make more videos talking about books. That's it for today's video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in my next video.